Hi, my beauties. Once again, I completely forgot to film the little intro. Um, so basically, if you want to see how I did this look, stick around. Sorry if the lipstick's a little. I ate because my stomach was all hangry. Um, but stick around, and thank you. Hi, my beauties. I'm going to do a get ready with me and part 2 to Titanic facts. This time, we're not going by my memory, going by notes. Providing I can read them without my glasses, because I didn't think that far through. To make things simpler, and to not have to describe every single thing that I'm doing color-wise, we're going to use just the one palette, which is the You Can Be Twilight and Dusk. I've already primed and set my eyes with that color, which is Royal. And I think I'm going to use Amethyst as a transition shade. And I'm either going to use Nefertiti here or Twilight there to deepen the crease. And then I'm thinking I might do Amber on the lid, and I might do I know I'm going to do the cashmere for the eyeline, but I might do that to darken up the outer corners. And the only exception to it is my Sephora, you know I can't ever remember this, after work drink number 318. I think it's 318. I have a lot of lights shining in my eyeballs right now, so it's hard to see, which kind of defeats the purpose, but you know, it is what it is. Now, some of these facts I was getting from different sites, so they may not be like in chronological order, but they're still interesting facts nonetheless. So, now, the ship itself cost about $7.5 million to build. Even in today's standards, I think, well, I don't know what it costs to build a ship nowadays, but that's a lot of money, regardless. Let's see if I put this here, if I can read it easier. Because you know I'm blind. And yes, it is that bad. Okay. It took about 3,000 of Harlan and Wolff shipbuilders to build Titanic. And there were, now this I do kind of have a little bit on later, but there were only about 20 lifeboats. Now, one thing I can tell you, I did go into the right one, didn't I? It's a little redder than I anticipated. Is that was exceeding maritime law. Maritime law only required 16 lifeboats. Now, the reason behind that, why it was so low, is ships increased in size rather quickly, and the laws didn't keep up, which was a shame, because they actually were outfitting it with 32 lifeboats in anticipation of the laws changing, but they didn't change, so they knocked 12 right off. Boom. Because they were still ahead of the game. And it was deemed to be unsinkable, therefore not necessary. Now, one thing that did change, because there's another fact in here, they were scheduled to have a lifeboat drill the day of the sinking. Well, technically the day before because it sank after midnight, but all in the same time frame. And for whatever reason, E.J. Smith canceled. And no one really knows why he did, just that he did. Now, today, because of things like, and a lot of it was mainly because of the Titanic, laws changed to where a lifeboat, a seat on a lifeboat was required for all souls on board a ship, and that includes the crew. Drills have to be done before you sail. And from when I worked at Disney Cruise Line, let me tell you something. As friendly and courteous as Disney cast members are, including on the ships, if you're not down there in a timely manner for the drill, they're going to round you up like cattle. And it's odd because they are nice about it, but they're forceful too. Trust me, I made that error when I went on my training cruise. I wasn't exactly fast enough for them. They tracked me down in my stateroom. It was like, you need to be on deck. I was like, okay, yes. Be right there. But that's so that there isn't any loss of life. Which is good and nice. Because, even crew, they need to live. The interior was based upon the Ritz in London. Very fancy. And because of the fact that, because Titanic was White Star Line, and I believe it was Cunard Line that had like the Mauritania and the Lusitania, which were very fast. So White Star decided, since they really couldn't compete speed-wise, they would have the most luxurious of ships. And they were. Up until White Star Line folded up and collapsed. Mainly because of the Titanic. But it wasn't like immediately after. Because the Olympics still carried on for a while. And a lot of these ships were used during World War I. Like, that's what happened to the Lusitania, it was actually torpedoed by German submarines. And even though it was marked as a hospital ship, it exploded into a big ball, which kind of confirmed to the Germans that it was carrying munitions. But, of course, the Allies denied that it was carrying munitions. Because, you don't want to give your secrets away during war. And it did require a lot of coal. About 800 tons of coal every day. And there was a bit of a coal shortage going on in England. So it didn't exactly sit well. But that carried on for quite some time. Because I know, like, the royal family had they were off traveling in warmer weather, and a lot of guilt over not suffering what the people were suffering. And then the launch of it was quite popular. They had about, was that a big flame? My daughter's cooking. They had about 100,000 people see the ship off, because people were excited, not just to be able to they just didn't have the funds to be able to sail on the ship. So, just being close to it and seeing it, because it really was ahead of its time. Size and how it looked, everything about it was just very modern and exciting for everybody. And let's see. This I found interesting. Of all the crew, and there was nearly, it was about 885 crew. 23 were female. The rest were all male. That was pretty cool. But I didn't see any stats on how many of them survived and didn't survive and all of that. And the ship had its own newspaper that it would print out daily. And it was posted every night in the first class smoking room. And, because first class was truly catered to, even though their profits came from third class. And there were reported to be about 13 couples on their honeymoon. And I imagine that in itself was quite tragic, because times like that, it was women and children first. And, the men were expected to be gentlemanly and just go down. Kind of hard to imagine today, because half the time you don't even see a man getting up to let a woman have a seat. Not how I raised my son, but they're out there. And John Jacob Astor, he was the richest, because as it put it, there was first class and then there was Astor. It was estimated that he was worth about 90 million at the time. It's roughly about 2 billion today. Now, he did go down as a gentleman, but it was reported that, he was traveling with his second wife. He was quite younger than him. And she was pregnant. And he asked, due to the fact of her pregnancy, could he get on the lifeboat with her? And that was denied. But he didn't fight it. He just put her on the boat and did what all the other men were doing, was assisting the women onto the boats and resigning themselves to what was going to happen. And there were several well-to-do, famous people that were supposed to be on the ship, but for various reasons were not. One of them was Milton S. Hershey. He had to switch to another ship to arrive in New York sooner for business meetings. And then there was J.P. Morgan, who had, like a top of the line suite with a private promenade and all of that. And he canceled at the last minute to take care of some business in France. So he wasn't on board either. And now I have that written down somewhere else. So there was somebody else. We'll get to that eventually. Now the youngest survivor, I know her name, Melvina, I think it is. Dean. She was 2 months old at the time of the sinking. And she lived to the age of 97. She died in 09. And I believe, because I've seen interviews of her, and she talks about how her mom always talked about the sinking, because she herself, 2 months old, she doesn't remember other than her father going down with the ship. And then the ship's baker, Charles Joan, I think is how you say it, He spent 2 hours in the water. And he said the reason that he was able to survive being in the water that long was all the whiskey he drank beforehand. And who knows? I know that there were some people that were near smokestacks and the water was warmer and things like that, that, you know, they were able to get picked up. It wasn't a whole lot that got picked up, but there were people that were. Okay, we talked about Smith canceling lifeboat drill. And the wreck, they were about 400 miles from Newfoundland. And had there not been a design flaw, they may have managed to kind of limp their way, but the design flaw was they had the watertight bulkheads, but they only went so many feet above the waterline. Had they been sealed off completely, the ship would have balanced out. Okay, might have been a little nose heavy, but they could have limped their way into like Newfoundland. But they weren't. They were open just, you know, so many feet above the water level. And what was happening was, as it was getting weighed down by the water, it was just spilling over, which kept dragging it down. And naturally, the news got it all kinds of wrong because they were trying to compete with each other. There were reports of no loss of life, and there were reports of complete loss of life. It was like hours before they were able to get the real facts out. And there we go. A movie about the tragedy came out about a month. The first movie. A month after the sinking. I'm just trying to think of which would be the better color. It was a silent film. So, and it starred, now that I can see, it was called Safe from the Titanic, and it starred Dorothy Gibson, and that came out in May of 1912. There's been about 6,000 artifacts recovered, and we discussed that, you know, I kind of see that as grave robbing. Wow. Didn't realize I had that much dust. I'm just playing with some of these colors and just making sure which. Now I'm putting the glitter on, but I really want to use that one. But you know, it still, oh, and the fact that I mentioned and forgot, there was a necklace recovered, and it was in diamonds, and it spelled out the name Amy. They don't have anybody recorded with that name as a passenger, so they don't know if it might have been a mistress, because that was commonplace, or if it was a gift that somebody was bringing back. But I actually saw the necklace, and it's really cool. Okay, that's just kind of a shimmer. And that's really red. No. All right. Sticky went off anyway. I waited too long. That's okay, because we can put more sticky on in a moment. What I want to do is kind of get some of this red out. So I'm coming into, I think it's angelic. I'm just going to go with that. Kind of give that more of a, less of a red, more of a brownish. Now the remains of the Titanic are disappearing very quickly from, we definitely need Halomonas Titanicae. It's a, I believe it's a bacteria. It's an organism nonetheless that eats the rust. And so it's kind of just eating away at what remains down there. And they expect it to be completely gone by the year 30. Fun fact, there's approximately 10,000 lamp bulbs that were on the ship altogether. And that may not seem like, you know, because you think, oh, there's going to be light everywhere. We're talking about 1912. Light bulbs were relatively new. And there were 2 workers that were killed while building Titanic. It's at different sites. There were about 6 iceberg warnings that went ignored. Part of it, like I said, was E.J. Smith's hubris. You know, his experience, he was retiring and everything. But it was also, they had more iceberg in the water at that time of the year than normal. Quite a bit more than normal. So that went against them. And, you know, I mean, it was a comedy of errors, because you had that, you had the call to try to turn the ship, and it was just too big to turn. Had they smacked into it head on, they might have survived it. The water was a flat calm, and hardly any stars out at night. So there was like nothing, you know, no breaking water for the moon to reflect off of, or anything. A crew member was switched out at the last minute from the lookout, and that's better. At the last minute, and he had the key to a locker that they believe had the binoculars. So that's why, they didn't have them on board, was this last minute swap of, the crewmen. And again, just not thinking. And then and the actual temp of the water was 28.4 degrees Fahrenheit. So, kind of give you a little perspective of how icy and cold that water was. And the shock of the cold did kill some of them instantly. Because, when you get into a pool that's really, really cold, the temp on that pool is usually about 75 degrees. And it's because your body core temp is higher than that it feels very, very cold. So imagine 28.4 degrees. That's quite the shock to the system. I love this pink rose gold glitter that's in here. It's quickly becoming one of my faves. Because if I'm not using this as a glitter, my general go-to is, I don't know if it says it there or not, but it's LA Splash Diamond Dust. And I have it in Stellar, and that's kind of like a brownish gold kind of thing. Okay. Be right back. I'm just gonna clean up under here real quick. Okay. The total percentage of passengers and crew who survived is about 31.6%, when 53.4% should have survived. Quite the difference. And in 1898, about 14 years before Titanic, Morgan Robertson wrote a novella titled The Wreck of the Titan. And it was about a fictional ship that struck an iceberg and sank, with a great deal of their passengers not surviving due to a lack of lifeboats. Kind of spooky, if you ask me. Talked about Morgan. The other one I couldn't really remember was Vanderbilt. Alfred Gwynn Vanderbilt. He canceled. But he died 3 years later on the Lusitania. Let's see. That's that one. And Light Toller, he did survive. He was the most senior crew member to survive. And I want to say he was like second lieutenant. Don't quote me on that, because I'm not entirely positive. But he was the most senior. Now, during World War II, he provided and manned one of the little ships that saved the stranded soldiers in Dunkirk. So that was rather neat to be a part of, you know, another historical event. Not meaning to, but nonetheless, he was. And then Isidor Strauss, his body was recovered. Ida was not. Isidor was placed in the Strauss Mausoleum in Woodlawn Cemetery. And what the family of Ida did was they got water from the wreck site, placed that in an urn, and then placed that in the mausoleum, because her body was never recovered. I'm like extra blinky today. And then and a lot of the survivors insisted that the ship broke in two pieces. And they were just kind of blown off. Researchers later, when they found the wreck and found it in two pieces, they were a little surprised, because it was believed that the ship couldn't break into two pieces like that. But it did. There were several young boys on board as crew, some as young as 14. And they were known as the Bellboys. None of them survived, sadly. This video is getting so long. Good enough. Be right back. Just going to do that to the other eye because it's getting really, really long. Hi. Okay. I went ahead and did everything because time. So, I will finish the facts though. because it's almost done. Now, every engineer that was aboard went down with the ship. They stayed behind to run the power so that the others could have a chance of escape. Because after getting everybody onto boats, it became every man for himself, and so they attempted that. The survival rates were 74% women, 52 children, and 20% were men. Now, out of first class, there were 324 passengers. 201 survived. In second class, there were 277 passengers. 118 survived. Third class had 708 passengers, and 181 survived. And then crew, there was 885, only 212 survived. Okay. Shh. And the docks were specially made to build the Titanic and the Olympic. They had planned for 4 ships. 3 were named. You had the Titanic, the Olympic, and the Britannic. They hadn't named the 4th one in plans, but I don't remember. I want to say it was only the Titanic and the Olympic that got built. I know that there's like a Titanic hotel where the White Star Line used to be, I think. Anyway, my understanding is that railings for the staircases and everything were taken from the Olympic and put in there because they were identical. Because, like I said, they were going for luxury, and the ships were to be very, very posh, very luxurious. Even, like I said, third class was much better on the Titanic than, and much more luxurious than any other ship. You know, even their menus were really good. But that is pretty much it on that. Let me know what other subjects you want me to cover. And that was just something out there. If you want, I can go ahead and start my, like, odd, strange historical facts where none of it matches. It's just random out there. And I'll do that. Don't forget, I have a giveaway for 4 more people. That's all I need. 4 more. And then I can set up the giveaway. We can know who won. I have 2 winners. The first one's going to get what I initially set out to do. The second one, I have stuff coming in for that, and it's not going to be as much, but it's still going to be quite a bit. That will take probably till the end of next month. I'm tracking it and trying to see, but I now know that this company takes forever and a day. So I'll have that link down below. And if you liked what you saw, ring the bell, punch the thumbs up, and leave me a comment. Like I said, just tell me the next subject you want to see, and I'll do a majority vote. And, you know, because I do have several plans on what I want to do. Okay? So until then, goodbye, my beauties.